Welcome to the Audible Farm podcast. This is the third episode, and I am your host, Peter Stockdale. This week, I traveled down to Perry, Iowa, and visited with Ben Christopher, who owns BRG Music in Perry. And we discuss a few of his bands. We also discuss our mutual love for PV. We also discuss giving guitar lessons. He's a busy man, and he's got a lot to talk about. I'm sure I'll have him on again in the future sometime. And yeah, so here we go. We're going to do it right now. This is episode 3 and Ben Christopher.
It's the Audible Farm podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Hey Ben, how's it going?
Not too bad. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We're sitting down at BRG Music in Perry right now, and Ben Christopher owns the shop down here. He gives guitar lessons. He gives drum lessons. I've been here for just a little while today, and we've been talking before the podcast, and we were talking about guitar lessons and drum lessons, and Ben gives both lessons at the shop, and we were talking about whether or not he played guitar or drums first. So we were going to save this for the podcast. So let's hear it. Guitar or drums first?
Drums. Drums was my first passion.
All right. So when did you start playing drums?
I'm going to say 5th grade, actually, in band.
So you played in, did you play snare drum, or did you play like a trap kit, or did you play like in the jazz band, or what are we talking
Yeah, I
about?
started like everyone else on the snare drum, and then as it progressed, I think by 8th grade I was playing the trap kit. I didn't do the jazz band thing, but in standard band they let me play the trap kit on a couple tunes.
I always feel like the people that start out with the snare first are some of the more apt people to play the whole kit. I don't know if it has something to do with learning all of your rhythms on the snare first, and
Yeah, I think it comes down to the rudiments and stuff. Learning
Yeah.
those and getting those down makes a big difference because that's your basic understanding of sticking and all your patterns. And I mean, those are things you study your entire life. You never stop.
So at what point in time did you switch from playing the drums to playing the guitar?
I was in high school and I skipped school one day, and my dad was a guitar player and he had a guitar sitting around, and I taught myself to read tab and picked up the tab for the song One and learned the intro, and I never looked back. I quit playing drums really because I couldn't afford a drum set. I priced out this kick butt Pearl kit, double
Yeah.
bass, everything, and I put the cost of cymbals into it, and my little grocery store job just wouldn't cut it.
Yeah, that's definitely like the biggest hurdle for a drummer, I would have to say. Why are there so many guitar players? Because you can buy a whole awesome guitar setup for $2,000. I mean, or even $1,000. And a drum set, you'd be lucky to even get $1,000 on good cymbals.
Right. It got insane pretty quick. And even nowadays too, a kid starts out, they get, a decent guitar for a couple $100 and they get one of these modeling amps for like $130 to $200.
Mm-hmm.
It's killer.
Yeah, and you can make any sound you want to just from your bedroom that way. Instead
Oh,
of
yeah.
having to get 3 or 4 different amps, a whole bunch of pedals.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Absolutely.
And so you start playing guitar. Did you ever play drums in any bands?
No, I've done like a couple jams,
Mhm.
for fun, but I've never actually like been a gigging drummer, so to speak.
Yeah. Do you think playing the drums first, do you think that helped you become a better guitar player? To,
Absolutely, my right hand from
Mhm.
playing like a eighth note beats on the hi hat for
Yep.
so long. When it came time to do like the down picking and everything, it was pretty natural.
That's-
It felt good.
yeah, I just recently bought a drum set, and I'm trying to find the best way to start. I guess like you and I live quite a long ways away from one another. Actually, I live in northern Iowa, and his shop is in Perry. But what do you think would be like the best suggestion for somebody that's starting to learn the drums? I mean, you always hear just practice rudiments, but what's like the best way to have fun while you're learning?
Learning songs is a big thing. Trying to pick those apart. Learn some basic rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
Basic beats, and then try to expand them on your own with your imagination and stuff too. That helps, but that takes a little time.
Yeah. I mean, my current talent scope for the drums is pretty much AC/DC and not too much farther.
The
So
Phil Rudd beat, boom, check, boom.
yeah, yep. So other than that, I'm pretty much found myself stuck in a hole, and it's whatever. But I guess that's to anybody that wants to do the drum lesson thing. You can definitely stop down BRG Music in Perry. So you start playing guitar. What kind of bands are we talking about here? What was like the first band you joined? What kind of music did you play?
It was metal because I was pretty hardcore into thrash metal since I started.
Yep.
I was before I played guitar. I was like any other kid at the time, like Def Leppard and cheesy hair metal stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yep.
it was really big. And then I got into Megadeth, and that was like I saw them play on Arsenio Hall. They did Hangar 18,
Nice.
and middle of the tune when it changes tempos.
Yep.
Like was like mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like that's a oddly fun parallel because kind of did the same thing. I was first into like, I mean, I get a lot of crap for it, but I was first into Warrant. That was like one of the first bands, and it's like Cherry Pie guys. Like you got to listen deeper into the Cherry Pie album. There's some hits in there, and people give me crap for it. But I mean, that was kind of my. You start going through the hair metal until you're like, I need something heavier than this hair metal. And ironically enough, Megadeth was the first thing that I listened to.
You mentioned Cherry Pie. I always thought they did have some decently heavy stuff on there, like Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Uncle Tom's Cabin is amazing.
I thought that was like my favorite track on the record when it came out.
It's so good.
Actually, the tape. I'll say that. So, yeah.
When I was in high school, a friend of mine, it would have been the last Active Input show for anybody that's been listening to the podcast. But the very last Active Input show we ever ended up doing, we made an attempt to play Uncle Tom's Cabin, and it wasn't horrible, but it was an attempt to say the least. And we were all just like in high school,
right,
trying to play some songs. But we pulled it off, and it worked out all right. But yeah, Uncle Tom's Cabin is awesome. Even like the album before that had like Down Boys and like 32 Pennies. That was what? Dirty Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was even a pretty good album. But the older you get, I feel like maybe the teenage angst starts to set in, and you're like, all right, I need something heavy.
Yep, the testosterone goes up, the anger comes in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So did you play a bunch of covers, or did you start making your own music right away?
Well, really, and it's funny because the guy that I play with in Patient Zero now was like the first band I joined. He was the drummer.
Oh, really?
Like, we connected over like Randy Rhoads. He's like, you play that stuff? I'm like, yeah, I love Randy Rhoads. So we're all about that, and we'd mess with like Holy Wars and tunes like that, and Metallica songs and Slayer and whatnot, all the stuff. And at the time, I started getting more into like Morbid Angel and Death and the real heavy stuff, because I really, being a background in drumming, death metal's where it's at.
Exactly. Yeah, those maybe weirder time signatures, or like the shift from what feels like one time signature to another.
Right. Plus just the sick double bass playing.
Yeah. I interviewed Clint Blumker first podcast, and he was talking about Death. To me, he was the conduit for me, I guess, to discover Death, and he was heavily obsessed with them when he first discovered them, and it's rightfully so. I mean,
yeah, I think they're a great gateway band for anyone who isn't really a death metal person, because for me, remember, there's Columbia House years ago.
Yeah.
You get like CDs.
Yep.
And I had a free CD coming, so on a whim, after reading a Guitar World article, I got Symbolic by Death.
That's a great one.
And that was like mind-blowing, because at the time I was, into the thrash and everything, and Dream Theater was big, and I was into those guys, and some more progressive stuff, and Death was like, it was heavy like thrash and death metal, articulate like some of the prog stuff that was out at the time, and I thought it was a really good kind of gateway drug.
That's pretty awesome. I do. That's a really good analogy for them. It's almost exactly in between some of the prog bands and some of the heavier bands that everybody likes. So
yeah.
So you're in Patient Zero, and what let's start out here. Patient Zero. You guys are Facebook, right?
Yep.
Do you have a Twitter?
Yes, we do.
Is it active at all?
It is active. We don't post a lot unless we're doing shows and stuff. Right now we're in a rehearsal mode. We've kind of altered some things, and we're getting ready for the next show in November, so it's quiet.
I want to say Three Finger Betty was going to play a show with Patient Zero maybe last New Year's Eve. You guys might have had a show booked.
Yeah.
But
was that night? It was super cold. It was Hull Avenue Tap.
Yeah,
we played.
Yeah, it was a really odd night, because I want to say that some of the bands got shuffled around, like the week before the show.
Yeah.
So I lost like all semblance of who was going to be there, because that happens sometimes at
Yeah,
shows
it
where
does.
like you get a poster and you show up and only one of those bands is actually there, and you start to think, I don't want to call these guys by the wrong name,
Right.
and we're not the types of bands that are going to hang giant flyers around, I guess.
No,
But
well, occasionally you hang flyers, but
Yeah.
it's not like you don't spend that money on
Yeah.
flyers all the time. Got to buy strings,
so yeah, I actually have seen you play on a dark and cloudy New Year's Eve
Very
night.
cold New
Yes.
Year's Eve night. Yeah.
So we actually have shared the stage together on one occasion.
Yeah.
But the first time you and I ever actually met each other was I met you through your reverb shop online. I was hunting
Yep.
for some PV gear, and I found some that I wanted, and I saw it was slightly local to my area, so I drove down here and talked to Brian face to face about Ben. I talked to Ben face to face about it. Uh, the joke is I called him Brian earlier. Okay, so I talked to Ben about it here at the shop, and that's kind of how I got in contact with him. And I thought, I'm going to keep Ben in my back pocket as somebody to throw on the podcast for this. You got the shop here. You're in Patient Zero. You also said you played guitars live with Tranzig.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear a little bit about Tranzig. What's the deal with that?
Yeah. Okay. This is Tranzig is Eric Tran's solo project. After he left Green Death, he decided he was going to do an EP, and he did drums, bass, guitar, and just did the whole thing himself.
Did it all? Okay, yep.
Yeah, recorded it, all that. And I met him, geez, 2002, 2001, something like that.
Yeah.
At House of Bricks one night after a show. Donnie
Nice.
Steele and I were in there, and Donnie introduced me to him. And it's ironic because all these years have passed and we never played together. And he hit me up early last spring, about maybe playing with him live, and he sent me over like the little bit of the music, and as soon as it started, I'm like, I'm in. This is cool. This is really good.
Yeah.
And we've been joking that why haven't we played together? We met so many years ago, and it's like we have the same background. He's a year older than I am.
Yeah.
Same kind of music.
Okay.
Thrash metal, all that stuff. So.
Oh yeah. If you're playing, okay, you play the guitars on the live when you guys would play live.
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
What does he play, or does he just?
He plays
sing?
guitar.
He plays the guitar as
Yep.
well.
It's when he tracked it, he was thinking 2-guitar band, So
right.
there's rhythm guitars constantly, and there's 2-part harmonies and everything
Mm-hmm.
else. So there's a lot of layers there. So I'd never stop playing.
Yeah.
The entire time I'm
Yep.
busy unless there's a point where I just don't play.
Yep.
So it's constant motion.
Do you guys have any shows coming up for Tranzig?
Yeah, actually, November 2nd, we're playing. I'm playing double duty that night. Patient Zero is going to open, and Tranzig's going to play too. Dogs of Neptune will be there, and it'll be a pretty cool show at Lefty's.
At Lefty's.
Yeah.
That's in Des Moines, right?
Yeah,
Lefty's in Des Moines. So that's you said November
2nd. Yep.
November 2nd. So mark your calendars for that one, everybody. That's sure to be a good show. I actually do see a flyer for that hanging right behind us here at the shop, because we are at BRG Music, if I didn't mention that at the
Yes.
beginning.
That'll be the first time I've seen God Crutch too, so this will be a good show.
Yeah, it's always nice to see a new band play that you haven't before. The best part about that is when you see a band and you're just like, holy cow, how have I never heard of these guys? And you go on Facebook, you guys have been around for like 4 years.
Yep.
And this
Yep.
is only Iowa, and there's only so many places you can play, and how did you
Right.
slip through my fingers somehow?
Right.
There's I've ran into a handful of those, and I've only been playing music live probably for like 2 years now around this area, or even at all for the most part. I kind of just took like a 10-year break, but yeah, it's always great to see new bands. So you got playing with Tranzig, Patient Zero. You did mention you played some country music, I believe, maybe like country and classic rock, something in that vein. The band was Dirt Road Divide.
Yep. It's something I've been doing for a while. It's it's fun to do, and we do a lot of different shows, and typically it pays pretty decent for what it is, unlike your average metal show where you go out and make nothing. I'll
Yeah.
get, someone pays me to play. I like it, obviously.
Oh yeah, totally. You gotta be able to pay the bills somehow.
Yeah, and it's always fun to play.
So, do you guys play any originals, or is it mostly covers, or?
Oh, there's a couple originals in there, but I think we will go out and we'll play like a 3 to 4 hour show, and the
dang.
bulk of it, like I'd say 97 to 98% is covers,
All right, so we'll throw a little plug out there for Dirt Road Divide, classic rock, maybe a little bit of country style stuff. You guys can fill like 4 hours plus.
Yeah.
That's well worth a mention in the cover band scene because I mean, everybody can start a cover band, but filling up 4 hours takes
It does.
quite a
And
bit
you
of
have to
grit.
build a repertoire and then be able to on the fly recall a lot
Exactly.
of songs. You
And
know.
I mean, even if you're gonna, I even see cover bands do it with the binder up front, and I don't even mind that so much because even that, it's still just like, how do you even? You had to organize this binder to find somebody who's like, I want to hear "Night Moves" by Bob Seger, and you're like, all right, well, flip, flip, flip. Here it is, everybody. You got it. Yep, sounds good. You just do it like. That takes quite a bit because you can't practice 4 hours worth of music every single week with the band.
No, I mean, yeah. Think about it. If you just go through your set, that's 4 hours burnt. You know.
Yeah,
And we a lot of times it's like, we'll be on stage and it's something we've done before. We'll just, what key is that in? Oh yeah, it goes like this, and we'll kind of sing it to each other real quick and then nail it.
yep.
Or try to nail it.
Yeah, I mean, 4 hours. That's a long time to fill. I mean, I would have to, I think the only time I ever came close to that, we filled like an hour and a half. We played at the Valor Ballroom for something, and
Yep.
and that's intimidating.
Yeah.
It's super
Well, you
intimidating.
take breaks.
Yeah.
About a 10-minute break every little bit, 45 to 50 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If the crowd calls for it, you keep playing.
Yeah,
it does wear on your fingers, but
I've
it's
always
awesome.
I always hear that from the cover band artists. Like if people tell you to keep playing, it's usually just keep playing because if you
Yeah.
stop, everyone's gonna either leave or do something else, and they lose interest.
Yeah,
So
but then it gets better as the night goes too, because
Yep.
they tend to get more cooperative as they drink more.
yes,
So
yes.
you know,
So you play plenty of guitars. You're in 3 bands. You also do guitar lessons down here at BRG.
Oh, yeah,
and you're the head guitar man down here.
Yep.
You do all the lessons yourself here.
Yep, everything, but I don't do the piano lessons. I'll let Bertha May handle that. So
So you do even have piano lessons available down here at the store for people that want to do
Yep,
piano.
yep.
So that's pretty cool. What about bass? You do bass lessons here?
I've done bass lessons,
Yep.
and they haven't been consistent. It's bass is one of those instruments. Ironically, I think it's kick butt. Guys that play bass are awesome.
Yep.
But it seems like everybody wants to play guitar.
Yeah, I wonder what the deal with that is. And I mean I get it. Like in the skill level aspect, I always used to say like to play a bass guitar well, like actually very well, takes more skill than it would to play a guitar well. I've always said that, and I don't know why, but I feel like at the beginner's level, the bass is like the easiest one. So I always feel like people get to the beginner stage on bass, think they're learning a bunch, and then they just never learn any more on the bass. So they never felt like they needed the lessons in the first place, and then maybe they get stuck in kind of a circular rut that they
Yeah,
can't
and
get out of.
there's more. Bass is one of those overlooked deals. I mean, a good bass player will make a band sound so much better.
Bingo.
You think about. I was watching a thing on YouTube a while ago about the main riff in Back in Black.
Yep.
It's like E, D, and A on the guitar.
Mhm.
And then the fill. Well, the bass player, and you think he's gonna play the root notes only.
Yep.
Well, he actually, when they go to the A chord, he plays the C sharp. He plays the third, and that colors that when the guitar plays, it gives it a major chord sound.
Yep.
And it makes it sound right. If the guy just plays an A, it sounds kind of bland. The song sounds right when he played the C sharp
Yeah,
against the A. It's
That's-
cool.
That's a very good point. I mean, there definitely is something that has to be said for the good bass players that are out there because there are plenty of them, and I see them everywhere. But
Yeah.
they're usually in at least one band. It's kind of like the drummer syndrome. Like you find a drummer, he's in 5 bands. Like why? Because it's just how it works. And same thing with bassists. It seems like the best ones are in a handful of bands, and
Right.
you couldn't pry 'em away from those bands if you had to.
The Ben Tessman that I play with in Patient Zero, he's in Slide on the side, and he
Yep.
plays in Duro Divide with me.
Yep.
I know he plays with some other guys occasionally, so he's always busy.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. We played with Slide actually. I want to say might have even been at the Valor Ballroom show. Otherwise that might have been Reload that played there.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember their schedule, but he only started playing with them a little while ago. I think right before our last drummer left is when he started playing with them. So
All right. So we got the lessons down here. I also kind of want to mention that PV, he's a PV dealer down here, and I came down here and played a PVHP2 when I came down and
yeah.
saw you, and that was kind of nice to see a guitar that rare out in the wild and even have the ability to play it. So I just want to say on the air, thank you for letting me play the guitar at least.
Right.
But you're also kind of a PV nut down here. You got a PV and G&L dealership down here.
Yep.
What's the thing that kind of draws you, I guess, to like PV or G&L or any of these other companies that you might have here?
Really, it's one of those things where the price and the product are really good. You know what I mean?
Yes.
PV's, as you know, they've always put out great stuff
Yeah,
for the money.
it's always my favorite.
My PV JSX heads, I'll never get rid of at this
Yep,
point. They're awesome.
So there's another endorsement. That's
right,
my amp too.
Right. They I think they kick complete butt, and you know, the innovation that PV applies to, and being that Hartley PV is still there every day.
Yes.
That speaks a lot to me, because a lot of these companies anymore, it's a conglomeration that owns them, and the personal input's not there. Unless it's, like you talk about companies like Rivera or something like that. Paul Rivera Sr. still there.
Yep.
But that's become more of the exception than the rule, which I think kind of it takes away from it a bit.
Yes. Did you read that article recently? Maybe it was Guitar World that put it out, but it was they had talked to Hartley about like why he's even still there, and he said almost exactly what you said. Like if I'm here doing what I've set out to do from the beginning, then the product will remain at the highest level that we want it at. And it's not that if he leaves it's going to go away, but it seems to be that, like, let's say Marshall, like, it's not that Jim Marshall had a specific sound and tone that he went for, but it seems like Marshall hits the cookie cutter button quite a bit. Or they're like, I want something to sound kind of like this. Here's 9 amps that sound like it. And then a few years later, they're like, well, it's pretty close to, it sounds a lot like the JCM, but it's, it's a little bit different, and I always felt like PV tried to steer farther away from that if they could.
Yeah, they were. I mean, he's got a great engineering team.
Yeah.
And he's really good about getting more out of those guys. I mean, there's stuff that they do that the general public doesn't really know about.
Yeah.
I mean, they see it every day, like all the amusement park rides and music and stuff. That's all PV.
That's all PV stuff.
Yeah, PV is called Media Matrix.
So it's like all the buttons they're pushing on all the rides and
the
stuff.
Whole everything. It's a whole system they run. So Disney World and stuff like that on. It's crazy.
So they run the electronics and everything there?
Yeah.
Are they they're not building like the wheels for everything and stuff like
that?
Well,
no, you're talking about like the computer control systems and everything. It's pretty intense.
That's pretty cool. I guess I didn't realize that. We may have spoken about that last time I was here.
Right.
But I didn't know that. Did you went to the PV factory?
Yeah, I went to a dealer seminar down there.
Yeah,
at their headquarters.
And was that where you first found out they would do stuff like that?
Well, my original rep told me about it, and he kind of wrote it off as, if you even want to get involved in this, you have to take a class, blah blah blah. And I was like, what's this about, And then when I got down there to PV and Hartley explained it, and the other guys, I was kind of taken aback. I'm like, this is really cool, that they have these kind of capabilities.
Yeah,
I mean, you think about the products that are on the market right now that they put out.
Yeah,
they're kick butt. They're like cutting edge.
Yes.
What are they doing now? How far how far ahead are these guys in their thinking?
Exactly.
That's incredible.
It's pretty gnarly. I guess. I mean, when everybody hears PV, they think initially amps,
right?
Like almost always, and I mean, secondary maybe guitars, because PV does make one hell of a guitar.
Yep,
but
with PV, that's another point. Everybody uses a copy lathe to do their guitar necks now. PV did it first.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. Those guys were like the mass production, like gurus.
Oh yeah. So, speaking of PV guitars, you had a guitar in here that was, let's see, it's a PV AT200, and it's got an auto tuning function on it that you were showing me earlier. That was pretty gnarly. Can you maybe explain a little bit, just kind of for the people that are listening, about the guitar?
Sure. It's basically, it looks like any other electric guitar. It's got 2 pickups in it and everything, and it's got the switch and the volume and tone knobs. Yeah. The volume knob is actually your tuner. When you strum the strings, and you hit that knob, it'll put everything into standard tuning. The computer processes the signal and changes it, so what you hear through the amp is actually in tune, even though the guitar's not in tune.
Yeah.
So there's nothing mechanical like a Gibson robot tuner. It's not like that.
So it's not actually turning the tuners inside the guitar or on top anywhere. It's a computer that's taking the sound and
correcting the pitch.
It's correcting the pitch for you. That's actually pretty gnarly, because I mean, I was playing with it here and it wasn't plugged in, and I'm like, I don't know if this thing, is it not work?
Right.
And then you plug it in and it's like, oh, it's got, okay, so it makes sense that it's got to be plugged in, and then you turn it down and it's like, oh, it's still out of tune, even though when it comes through the amp it's in tune.
Right.
And that was a pretty gnarly thing. So that was one of those kind of things. I mean, every guitar company tries some sort of innovation, I guess, and it obviously didn't stick. Otherwise, you'd see one in every guitar. But,
right.
But it is kind of a neat little feature. I as of the last few years, have become a pretty big PV fan. So just seeing that kind of stuff is kind of neat.
Yeah, and they've always been really good about being at the cutting edge of the market. Sometimes it's detrimental, where it's too far ahead of the market.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really cool, but they're old drums. What are they, the Rotopros?
Yep.
They were Radio Pros. That's what they were. Alex Van Halen used them.
Okay.
They sound wicked good. Anybody that knows them thinks they're the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And Hartley said, I lost money on drums. It wasn't even worth it. But they are like, people talk about them to this day, how kick-ass they were.
I don't know if I've ever seen a PV drum set that wasn't just like an entry-level one.
They did some really cool. The shells were really weird looking. They actually have a really nice tone to them and everything. And they go for some serious money now.
Yeah, I guess like I said, I haven't looked too hard for one, but I haven't seen one. It is always kind of funny to search PV stuff and just find what's out there. And just because I enjoy it so much, it's just like, oh, someone's got a PV guitar stand for $10. I kind of want it. It's like, what? Like, why? What's gonna make this any better?
It's a guitar stand.
It's not
certain products are going to be what they are, but there's the thought and craftsmanship in some of the stuff they do is super cool.
Yeah. So you definitely like the PV stuff, but like, is there any other kind of stuff like you are definitely partial to?
Yeah. I mean, the G&Ls were another thing. I talked to years ago. I was chatting with Mick Thompson, and I asked him, what about G&L? Because at the time we were both talking about Fenders were, Malmsteen type stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I goes, what is G&L like? He's like, straight up, they're fucking awesome. I'm like, really? And then here years later, I was at the shop, and one of my reps that helps with me with Alvarez and everything. I went out to his car with him, and I went to throw the guitar in for him, and I saw a G&L case, and I literally hit him in the shoulder with the back of my hand. I'm like, Bill, you didn't tell me you did G&L, So let's go back inside, and I had a whole conversation with that. And G&L is like one of those companies too. It's Leo Fender, from 1980 until his death. What can he come up with? The original Fender designs were cool.
Yes.
But you take that engineering mindset and apply it to that years later with experience, and you get this way cool product. Better pickups, better bridges, everything.
Yeah, because that was like the first thing I noticed. The pickups, some of them, the single coils, they ended up with those offset single coils that would decrease. What a 60 cycle hum it is. I think.
Yeah, well, the Z coil pickups actually have they humbug. They sound like a single coil, but that was his last pickup design allegedly. They were a really cool take on. They do them on the Comanche and the ASAT Z3.
Yep.
They're a great sounding single coil type pickup, but they don't hum.
Was the bridge was another one. I want to say maybe they got an ASAT, which is like a Telecaster,
right? And
I saw a bridge on one of those that was a little bit different. I can't remember off the top of my head what was different about it.
They have the G&L dual. It's the there's got a couple bridges, but that's the saddle lock bridge on most of their fixed bridges. It's the big chrome deal, and you can actually lock the saddles in place so they don't move and everything. Those are kick butt, and then their vibratos are my favorite.
Yeah.
Those are the dual Fulcrum vibratos.
Yeah.
You can do all the Floyd stuff with them, but never worry about your nut or anything. They actually stay in tune pretty well.
Yeah, there's no routing on it then either?
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, it's routed like your typical bridge would be, so you've got the rear cavity and everything and the springs and all that. And you have to account for the bridge plate and all that. But I recently took one of my Buddy Blaze guitars and put a dual Fulcrum vibrato in it.
Yeah.
To replace the Floyd. Floyd's, I played them all my life, but, this bridge, stock from the factory weighs as much as anything I've upgraded.
Yeah.
And it cost me like $100. It's awesome.
I could never get too used to a Floyd, and I don't know why. I just couldn't. I don't, it's maybe a little bit was the setup. I mean, there's definitely a learning curve on there, and I don't have the. I mean, I like to say I don't have the time. It's not like I don't, but I don't know. I just don't want to spend the time messing around with it when I'm so busy with other things, I guess.
A lot of times I just block them anymore, because I play rhythm so much.
Yep.
With Tranzig and, especially with Patient Zero, I do vocals and stuff, and there's no time to worry about that. And I don't want to break a string and have my guitar go out of tune.
Yeah.
So I'll block it with a screw, and then that way I'm transferring energy into the body, and if a string breaks, I'm fine. I can still finish the song as long as it's not like my low string or something.
Exactly, yeah. So you got 3 bands. Like let's throw a little shout out to somebody here. You got anybody you want to maybe say hi to? Any other bands you want to shout out to? Band members, anything like that?
Well, I'll say hi to all my buddies, and Patient Zero, Ben and Nick.
Yeah.
The Funky Colt Medina and BFT Ben Tessman. Eric Sean and Josh from Tranzig, of course. The guys in Dirt Road Divide, Charlie and Dave. I've already mentioned Ben, so I won't mention him again.
Yep.
But those guys and anyone who's listening that we've played with, by all means, this is cool. Dom from Crazy One Promotions.
Oh yeah, Dom lives around this town, around Perry somewhere.
Yeah, he lives about 3 blocks from the shop.
So that's pretty cool. Let's talk a little bit about Dom. He does a little bit of promoting. Oh, I would say a little bit, but he does a lot of promoting. He sets up shows for different areas. Boggs Hole Avenue Tavern.
Yeah, he does a lot of the monthly
shows.
Yeah.
He'd do one monthly show every year. Like I want to say last year, Three Finger Betty did a handful of them. We haven't had any of the haven't had the schedule to do it this year. I mean, I think we've only played Boggs once this year, even, which is pretty rare for us.
Yeah, we haven't, and that's crazy because we used to play there all the time. I think we played New Year's Eve, and that was it.
Yeah.
We've been kind of off, trying to figure things out.
Exactly. So. But yeah, Crazy One Promotions. That's Dominic Derringer. That's what he does for other bands to help them out. He promotes them. He usually posts shows that he's looking for bands to fill, and it's not necessarily like a first come first serve basis, but it kind of is because he's willing to give almost every band a chance.
Yeah, he's great about that.
I mean, he'll try his best to mix punk bands in with metal bands that somewhat kind of fit together, so at least it's not like a really brash conflict of interest.
Right.
So he does a pretty good job of it, and he does have Facebook out there. He's got Instagram. He's got Twitter. A lot of his shows that he promotes, I do know he takes video footage and throws it on there. So he might even have video footage of you somewhere on there.
Yeah, he does. I'm sure.
Yeah. So, you have a Facebook for the shop here, correct?
Yes, I do.
All right. That's if someone wanted to go on Facebook and just search for it, is it BRG Music?
BRG Music of Perry.
Of Perry.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
We have a website too, brgmusicofperry.com.
Yep.
I found that the Reverb site moves more, so I'm more up to date on what's there. But my contact information is on Facebook and on our website as well. So
yeah, totally understandable with the Reverb thing. I do my fair share of checking Reverb. I mean, case in point, that's how we ran into each other.
It's great. I can't believe it was funny because I set up my Reverb page a long time ago and nothing was moving. Mm-hmm. I had a Marshall Mode 4, and I love the amp.
Oh, that's sweet.
I had at one time I had 3 of them, right?
Oh wow.
And I was using it, and I was like, I don't need 3 of these. So I put it up for sale on Reverb, sold that, and then the floodgates opened. I started selling a bunch of stuff. So it's been great.
That's insane. Yeah, I've always wanted to try a Mode 4. I never actually have. It's been one of the few Marshall amps I've wanted to get my hands on. I've heard mostly only good things about it. Some people say there's like an odd learning curve to it because it's not exactly like your normal style of an amp, I guess.
No, it's pretty like there's the 4 channels obviously. Channel 1 and 2 is like clean, and then your Marshall 800 modded kind of sound, and then 3 and 4. I don't think I ever used channel 3. 4 was like a sick, like ultra modern heavy bass high gain kind of sound too, which I'd use occasionally, but I typically just use the first 2 channels.
Yeah.
But they're great for what they are. 350 watts, you can keep up with tube heads. Don't worry about it.
So you got 2 shows coming up. Do you know if you got any shows coming up with Dirt Road Divide up anytime soon?
December 1st, we're playing for the IRCA in Osceola. So that's
cool.
going to be that'll be a pretty fun little deal we'll do. That's the only thing we have on the books there. And then there's another show coming up here early next year that I'm going to keep quiet about for Tranzig and whatnot. But we'll announce that here in the next couple of weeks.
All right. So if you want to make sure you find that one, you better look up Tranzig online.
Yep, he's got the Facebook page.
He's got a Facebook page for that as well. So just search for Tranzig online. We had somebody walk into the shop here.
He's a regular. He's coming to pick up a couple Gibsons I worked on for him. So.
All right, so we're good to go for just a little bit because we're getting close. We got a little over a half an hour under our belt here, and let's see. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about while I'm still here? So we covered. Got you online for the shop.
Yep.
You've got the bands.
Yep.
We got lessons here.
Yep.
You got the Reverb page. I will post all this stuff in the description section.
Very
so if
cool.
anybody wants to go back through and look for it, or even if you don't want to go search yourself, I'll do all the legwork for it.
That'd be awesome.
And it'll all be there. So I'm going to say thanks once again to Ben for doing a podcast with me because the first couple have been the hardest ones to start out with, and I'm just trying to shed light on people doing good things in the music world. From one musician, and I guess guitar lesson I teach too, but it's up in Humboldt, and I'm now in the process of my local guitar shop is going to close, so I need to
Oh boy.
transition into doing it on my own, which is
Yep.
going to be kind of a difficult
It's
thing.
it's a tough business. You know, there are a lot of shops come and go.
Yeah,
You know,
and
so
I know the guys that give lessons in the town north and south of me, and they're all really good people. And I mean, if I don't have the time to do it, or if I don't have a space to do it, I'm more than willing to send my students to them because
Yep.
I mean, there's no reason someone shouldn't learn the guitar if they want to learn the
right,
guitar.
right. It's not. We're all sharing knowledge. It's not a contest. You know?
Exactly. Real big fan of using YouTube for the lessons too. I'm if I teach something in a certain way and someone goes and looks it up on YouTube, that's initiative, man. I mean, I'm all for you going.
Yeah, I'd rather you come to me and say, "Hey, well, they don't play it here this way," and then it makes you think about, okay, if they're playing it there, why are they doing that? And then you can use that as a teaching moment. There's actually 6 places on the guitar to play this one E, and you can show them that.
Exactly.
So-
Yeah. So it's all a matter of perspective, and sometimes you just need to see both sides of the coin first. It's pretty nice deal being able to give that sort of a service back to your community, because when I was growing up, it was the infantile stage of the internet. There were some things online, but not to the tune of what it was
Right,
now. So
right.
if you wanted to learn guitar, there's 3 dudes dressed in goofy hats with sunglasses on inside, and they're like, "I'll teach you blues guitar, ba do
Yep.
ba da do ba da do ba da."
Yep.
So
Or jazz lessons.
Yeah.
I actually, I'm old enough that the internet wasn't even a thing until I was just getting into college.
Yeah.
So it was all guitar magazines for us, especially where I grew up. I grew up in a town of 500 people.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't resource.
Exactly.
Videos, VHS, tapes of like my favorite players they used to sell and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine starting now where kids have this advantage of actually seeing the artist play what they're trying to learn. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's insane. When it comes down to like being in a small town, and like you said, you had magazines for the most part. You started getting did you buy any of the VHS lessons or anything like that?
Yeah, I actually bought. I had the Marty Friedman Melodic Control VHS, and
Nice.
we had like my dad got some sampler, for shipping and handling that was actually really cool. It had like cuts of all the lessons, like Paul Gilbert, Yngwie Malmsteen, all these other
Oh, that's pretty
guys,
cool.
and Steve Morris and whatnot. It was really cool. Like REH at the time was the big publisher for that kind of stuff, so that was cool. And really just guitar magazines were the biggest thing. All the tabs.
Yeah,
There was one called Guitar School years ago,
All right.
which was the bomb. I mean, they'd have like 6 transcriptions, and the whole magazine was like basically a couple articles and then songs.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
Right.
I feel like I came in like at the end of the magazine era because the magazines kind of died off as the internet sort of killed it off.
Yep.
And I mean, like Guitar World would even try and entice people with like, buy this on the newsstand and get a hold.
Absolutely.
We got more people in the shop.
I'm gonna take care of this real quick.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, we're back. He had to take care of some customers at the shop here. But we were talking about guitar magazines, how I kind of came in a little late to the guitar magazine scene. And it seemed like they all kind of died out before I got a chance to get into it too much. And they had DVDs with them sometimes, and it seemed like they were trying to get close to what was going to start happening on the internet, but just wasn't quite there, because like Ultimate Guitar was still kind of in its infancy stage, and that was kind of the place to go to look up some tabs if you want to look up your tabs when you first started out. So, but I mean, as far as guitars and magazines go, that's kind of a way of the past, and it's justifiable in a sense just because of YouTube, and it's there is something to say for having all of that on YouTube, but if you don't have somebody trying to direct you as to where to go to find what you need to find and the steps to take to learn it, that's kind of usually the difficult part. Like, would you not agree?
Yeah, there's you can pick a lot of stuff up on your own, but sometimes explanations, they need a little more of a personal touch.
Yeah.
And it takes time for things to sink in. That's one thing, even with the guitar magazines years ago, there was a number of them. I mentioned Guitar School. There was Guitar World, which is still around, ironically.
Yep.
But I get it. I have a subscription to it, but believe me, it's a shadow of its former self as far as thickness and everything. The content's not there, because everything's online.
Mm-hmm.
But even within those, those different magazines, a tab can be incorrect, and those things.
Exactly.
Sitting down and having someone with experience like walk you through like why why would you play that there?
Exactly.
Because a lot of times I've looked at things and like they make no sense as far as where they're played in the tab
Yep.
versus where they'd be played in a song. If you're actually stream of consciousness playing through an idea,
Yes.
it makes no sense to do this weird move or play something in a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. Skip a handful of strings, go halfway up the neck, and play this here when you could have just
It's right in position,
started
or
in
something
somewhere
like that.
else and done it. Yeah.
Yep, totally.
So, I mean, that would be probably the biggest hurdle I see a lot of people was they can come in with a lot of knowledge but no idea how to put it all together. I guess would be a good.
And having someone riding your ass about doing the work, usually it can help some people. I was always personally very motivated to do it.
Exactly.
Because I was like, I can be better at this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But some people just they're shy or whatever. They need someone to push them.
Yeah,
it helps.
It does help. We were talking. I was listening to you talk to the customer about doing weekly lessons.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like is almost a definite must for some people. Because when I started doing lessons, I would do lessons with some people every other week because they wanted another week to practice because they either didn't have the time or they wanted to absorb it. And sometimes you find that if you go 2 weeks, it's almost too long because now they've spent too much time with the concept or they've over-married themselves
or
to
they
it.
haven't practiced because they don't have to. There's not that pressure to do so.
Exactly, because I have to learn this by next week. So I have run into a couple of those issues. But I definitely will have to say I've been guilty of that myself. If somebody gives me a little bit of leeway, give me an inch, I'll go for a mile.
Procrastinate. Procrastinate.
Just going back to school is teaching me that's almost not an option.
But it's really not in life. I mean, you can't wait until the last minute. Being proactive about certain things is definitely to your advantage.
Exactly. And if you don't prepare for something, it's hard to say that you're. It would be hard for me to say that I'm proud of the performance I gave if I was ill-prepared for something.
Right, right. I mean, you have to get real lucky.
Exactly. And maybe some of that comes back on the person, like maybe beating themselves up more than anybody else would in the first place. So maybe that would be like one of the things where like someone like me that doesn't need someone to push me to play guitar all the time, just for the simple fact that I enjoy it and I have the drive to, because I will beat myself up if I mess up a song playing it live.
Yep.
Way harder than anybody else trying to nag on me. So it's one of those types of deals.
Yeah, it's funny though. As I get older, you laugh it off more than you do when you're younger.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I can't believe I missed that.
And I'm not one to like lose my temper so much because I've over the years learned not to do that. There's just no benefit for it.
Nope.
But even so, I still just want to pull out what hair I have left.
Right.
Like after the show is over, and it's like you said, you play with the band a handful of times. You realize that it's not the end of the world. The 40 people in the bar you're playing in don't care too much, or I have played a couple shows in front of a few hundred people and messed up, and that's a little bit more embarrassing, especially when people come up and tell you did a great job after the show, and you just want to be like, oh really? Like are you making fun of me? Like, but they're not. They're being very sincere about it, but. It's the whole you're beating yourself up way harder than anybody else ever would.
Absolutely. I mean, you can come off stage and if you have a bad show, like you feel like the set wasn't what you thought it would be, and you're upset with yourself. It doesn't behoove you to when someone throws you a compliment to be like, "Oh, that fucking sucked."
Yeah.
That's not a good way to be. I mean, they're paying you a compliment.
Exactly.
It's like you take it graciously and just say thank you.
And I feel maybe as musicians that we're all a little bit shy, I guess, as musicians anyways. We're all kind of a little bit antisocial to some extent.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we are musicians in the first place. But that's definitely a lesson I had to learn was if somebody gives you a compliment, you should graciously accept it and move on. Regardless of whether or not you quote believe them or not, but it's if somebody wouldn't do that if they didn't want to, and they're doing it for a purpose, and whether or not it's for their own personal validation or to actually tell you that they thought you did a good job because they did a good job, it's the gesture is still there, and
and it's different for like from experience too. If like someone you've never met who watched you play comes up and pays you a compliment. That's one thing, right?
Yep.
And of course you accept it graciously. If someone that you play with and have known for years, they pay you a compliment, and you can always fire back. Well, and you guys can get into the shop talk of how the set really went in your mind, which is always fun too.
That's a great analogy. That's great. I definitely think that something has to be said for just being as positive as you can as a musician, because I feel like positivity is not always not always our strong suits as musicians or as artists in general.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you hear the terms like so and so sucks and other stuff like that getting
Yeah.
thrown around. There's no reason to be that way.
No, and it's really tough because it's one thing to do it in public. It's pretty foul. But if you do it in private, it still breeds a little bit of discontent.
Yeah.
And I feel like that the ripples of that stone in that pond go a lot farther than people think they do.
I think they carry their way into your behavior and everything, and how you interact with people in general.
Bingo. And I've found a little bit of that in the music scene, but I'm happy to say I try to steer clear of that as much as possible, which is one reason I kind of started this podcast, and another reason I try to find people that are positive to talk about music, because musicians work hard. I mean, put in 20 hours to play an hour, or so. There's probably a ratio everyone's come up with, but I played a one-off show this summer, and I put in 5 different practices, each practice being about an hour or so. That doesn't count how much I practiced before all these rehearsals as a band, and that was just to play one show for my hometown with a bunch of musicians from the area, and we just played 5 or 6 songs. We spent probably 15 to 20 hours each practicing before we even got on the stage.
Absolutely.
So there's something to be said. If somebody pays you that compliment, just kind of go with it.
Right.
If you're socially awkward, because it does take a lot even just to go up to somebody and give them a compliment. I mean,
yeah, it does. And, the people that come to the shows and stuff, a lot of metalheads, they're not exactly, the most social people either. I never was. Going up to someone who just came off stage and saying something to them, it takes a lot, and that's there's something to be said for that, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's also maybe I feel like there might be like an age difference too. Like I went to a Jake Shimabukuro concert this weekend. He plays ukulele.
Oh yeah.
And I met him in the lobby, and I just said hi and thanks for coming, and his music's great and I appreciate it. You give it the short stick and away I go, and all of a sudden the next person, there's 4 people with their phones out and they just want that picture for the Facebook wall. And I also, I don't know, maybe it's a generation gap and that I don't quite understand, but I used to do a little bit of that, and I started steering clear of it because I actually ran into Chris Thiele. He plays mandolin. He's on whatever a Prairie Home Companion is called now, like Hello From Here or something like that. It's an NPR TV or a radio show. So I met him at a show, and I didn't have a phone with me to take a picture, and he's like, "That's cool because this is for you, and you'll always have this, and that." So it put things into perspective. So
yeah, I've over the years I've met a lot of people, and I don't have photographic proof of talking to Paul Bostaph from Slayer or something like that, and a lot of these people that I've had the pleasure of hanging out with, it's just a personal thing. It's not like look at me, I know this famous person, I'm on Instagram type deal. It's they're human beings too.
Exactly.
You got to respect their need for real human contact. Someone to just chat with.
Exactly.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I think.
So having said all of that, we'd be probably scraping the bottom of the popularity bucket as far as musicians, because we're just in Iowa. But yeah, come out and say hi to us at a show. I mean, we will take the compliments in stride, and we'll be. I'd be happy to talk to anybody after a show sometimes.
Absolutely.
Because there's some shows you go in, not a single person says a word to you. You play the show and you leave, and not a single person says a word to you.
Yep.
And for somebody that you've probably drive fair distance to all your shows, half hour to an hour to most of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm pulling an hour plus to most of my shows, so it's kind of makes for a long day if you're going to drive a couple hours and nobody's going to talk to you at the show or whatever.
It leaves a weird feeling about you too, when something like that happens.
Yeah, it's a little eerie. Yeah. So I just I want to say thanks once again for letting me come in your shop, do a podcast in your shop with you. This is kind of a traveling podcast as of so far. So finding a location to do it is half the battle, and then finding someone to do it with is the other half. So I'm glad I found a good person to do the podcast with. Let's shake your hand here.
Yeah.
But we'll put links to all of his bands and his shop, BRG Music, in the description section of the post here on YouTube or SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to it. And I'm going to say goodbye, so we'll check you later.
Yep, all I got to say is buy our guitars, take our lessons, watch our bands.
Yes.
It.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, episode 3 is done, but before you fast forward to the end of this, let's discuss one more thing. I was talking with Ben after I packed up all the equipment. He wanted to give one more shout out to Buddy Blaze Guitars. It's an artist, and as far as I know, he builds his own guitars. It looks like. I've been looking at some of his stuff on Facebook today. It's pretty awesome. He's got some guitars online. He also looks like he plays guitar. And Ben is apparently pretty good friends with him, so he wanted me to make sure I got a shout out to Buddy Blaze Guitars. So this is going to conclude episode 3. I want to let everybody know that I do have some shows coming up. This weekend I have a show with Unity on October 6th. That's a Saturday. We're playing at Gabe's in Iowa City. And I also have a show with Three Finger Betty coming up. And that is Saturday, October 13th. We have a show, and it's a house show. So if you want to go to that one, you'll have to get in contact with someone from the band, and that'll be your best bet to find the attendance to that location. But otherwise, thanks everybody for tuning in for episode 3. Thanks again to my guest, Ben Christopher. I was really happy to branch out and go a little out of my comfort zone and talk to somebody that I might not have been so familiar with. And maybe, now you guys are familiar with him too. So make sure you come out to shows and say hi to us. If you're going to any shows this weekend, let me know what they are. You can tweet me at Audible Farm on Twitter. And make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, do the subscribe thing to YouTube. I mean, hit them all, everybody. But yeah, thanks again. Until next week, I really appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll catch you next time.